Hey you! If you clicked on this video, you are more than likely a Sabrina Carpenter fan wondering what is going on in that thumbnail when this makeup line came out, when that billboard showed up. But if you are not a Sabrina Carpenter fan and you're interested in her, but you want to see what's going on, you are in for a treat. Or should I say, a taste, because this video is all about that billboard, that makeup, that big giant lipstick that you saw, and how we even got to this point. Sabrina Carpenter makeup. Should it not be a thing? If it is a thing, what should it look like? We're going to dive into all of that in this video. I'm going to walk you through how I branded it, how I think it should look, how it came to be a speculative project of Sabrina Carpenter makeup, taste, beauty. And if you're into that kind of thing, you're into branding, marketing, graphic design, this channel might be the channel for you. Fancy giving me a subscription? Fancy giving me a like, a thumbs up, a comment? Any support of this little channel of mine helps. So, with all that being said, let's dive into it. Let's talk taste beauty, shall we? So we can't get into taste beauty without talking about Sabrina Carpenter, right? Sabrina Carpenter, if you don't know, is this amazing singer that has a notably and more importantly amazing aesthetic. She's very vintage inspired, retro, very feminine, short and sweet. She most importantly and most notably has this very beautiful vintage aesthetic that I am obsessed with. It works so well for her. I really cannot get around how much this vibe makes sense for someone like her. Like, even with the curtain bangs, it's just so perfect, so everything. And I really wanted to incorporate that when making a fictional brand for her, right? So Sabrina's last album is called Short and Sweet, and she has a song on there called Taste. And I got to thinking, wouldn't that be an adorable name, a cute name, a relevant, trendy name for a makeup line for her? And it kind of stuck when I started designing, and you'll see what I mean by that when we start to look at the mood board. But before we look at that mood board, when you take a look at Sabrina's website, you see she has a vintage aesthetic, but it's not like Americana, Lana Del Rey, off to the races type vintage, right? It's kind of like a softer of what vintage media looks like. Like, this looks like a magazine, and even her seal is kind of feminine with these really ornate, softer pieces. Like, she obviously could have went with like a 50s retro font and it would have been kind of funky, but she didn't do that. And I thought that that was a really interesting decision made on her creative team's part, but I really wanted to keep that kind of energy when we design Taste Beauty. So let's talk mood boards. First, I gathered a bunch of photos of her that really resonated with the theme that I was going with for this. And there's a lot, but I really tied it down to the type of images that really are cohesive with this idea of this 50s, 60s woman that's like practicing her makeup at home or even putting on makeup just for fun at home. These really ornate pieces that stand the test of time. What does that look like? What does that woman look like? So I use her as her own persona for this kind of speculative project for the brand. Even looking at the logo, like I mentioned, and her outfit choices and how things are, they could have been really mature and really dated, but we want to bring it into 2024 because that's when this is going to come out. You know what I'm saying? 2024, 2025, fingers crossed. But, there's a maturity here, but it's not too old and it's also not too limiting in the sense that it looks childish. So, we move on to actual design choices and what the design may look like, right? Now, taste beauty, obviously taste, your taste buds, eating things. The idea of like a confectionery or a pastry store, what does that look like? I was thinking of like a French pastry shop, and the stripes, usually it's like decadent colors, Cafe Du Monde, the green with the white stripes, and how that looks kind of tasty, or at least we associate that with taste because it's a pastry shop, right? And then this really ornate font with the script, the doilies. How can we make that edgy? Maybe that turns into outline, something like that. And if you're from Miami, like I am, got to put a billboard in there, right? Everyone knows this billboard, Don Bailey's carpets. The copper tone girl didn't want to put that on the mood board because it's a little interesting imagery, right? Or even 50s billboards where it's a 3D element and things are coming off of the billboard and it's really dynamic. How can we apply that to a makeup line? Then we start to get into color. These very soft vanillas, the soft yellow, the blue. It's very feminine, very much Sabrina in the sense that I've seen her in these colors like a million times. She wears like really soft colors, not like these striking, almost too in your face kind of colors. She's definitely within her color palette and it looks amazing. So let's use something like that when we're making these products because if it's gonna be from a celebrity, from a person, obviously it should reference them in some way. And it's not that it needs to look exactly like Sabrina, but if we're creating the story that it's from Sabrina and from the 50s and inspired by her and her look, obviously we need to start to think about how we can make those visual cues connect with each other so that it's not like to the viewer or the consumer and they're like, okay, why is everything bright pink even though this is for Sabrina Carpenter who is more of a bluey girl, right? So for the logos, I started here. I knew I wanted like a really cool script font, but I didn't want it to be too off the rails. So I already had like two scripts in my arsenal of fonts, luckily. And I wanted to see what they'd look like in outline, like on the mood board that I had, that I showed you. But I thought this looked way too edgy, and this was more of like freakified than it needed to be. It needed to be more classic, more palpable. And I decided against having them in that outline and even creating a little stamp that could be used as an emblem or even embossing methods on some of the makeup. And I settled on this one because I thought that this had just enough edge to keep it in 2024 and 2025, but not too much that it looked like I was trying to be a period piece of like the 50s and 60s. So combining that with the colorway that we had and established, we got here. So this is what we started with like a black, and I was like, this is a little too harsh, but adding in that brown and having a little element that makes it look like it's her signature. I was like, yeah, I think this is the one. And even having these stripes with the blue and this nice cream, it just looks really tasty, which is what I wanted. Really applying all of the senses to this brand, all of the emotional feelings that could be felt for this, as well as Sabrina Carpenter. That's what we were going for. So once we settled on this logo and this lockup, also incorporating her own logo that she had, I think was needed because it's beautiful and perfect. Then we can start to get playful with billboards and posters and what those would look like. So we can have something like this, incorporating all these amazing imagery that she has. She has like the most perfect photo shoots I've ever seen. Get a Taste in 2025, like incorporating Taste Beauty in the copy. What does that look like? These Marilyn Monroe moments, but keeping things cohesive with this stripe element. Like, I just love these pictures so much. So then I ended up doing a mock-up of what that billboard could look like in the streets. And like, hello, like, are you not stopping for this? Are you not stopping for this? Which then leads me into the packaging portion, which is the funnest portion. Yeah, who doesn't want to design makeup, right? So here, again, the inspiration from that retro vintage era where things felt a little more expensive, a little more special to have, right? These are things that are supposed to last like a super long time. They all have these really ornate details that make them feel really amazing. The gold, the idea of a bullet lipstick, right? These were definitely of the times, and I didn't want to make it a period piece, like I mentioned, but I did want to keep it cohesive with the visuals and the branding that we already started to establish for Sabrina. So, with all these cute little details in mind, we can start to think about how we can apply that to something for the modern era, which ended up leading me to here and here. Like, who doesn't want a heart shaped blush with the logo on the inside, right? You still have these ornate, beautiful details. It's still in flower petals. It's still very feminine, but it still feels expensive and like it's calling to a different time, but not completely out there because, we could have really took it there, but we still need to scale back, still need to remember who our audience is too. And then for the lipstick, we have the bullet lipstick. We still have the stripe elements, this beautiful blue, soft, that goes really well with this gold element, which also helps elevate it and make it feel a little more expensive, even if it isn't, right? And then we have that debossed logo moment here on the lipstick. And then we have her logo here too. So there's a lot of different calls to Sabrina and her image in her makeup. And I think it's really important to consider that when you're designing something that is related to her. So last but not least, let's talk about that billboard. I found a mock-up for billboards. Billboards are usually like super long landscape billboards, right? The amount of photoshopping I had to do to get this to look like this was insane, but we made it happen. I knew for a billboard, this needed to be like really crazy catching. And I know that physics come into play here. I don't even know if this is like that doable as a billboard, but for the sake of Photoshop, we're gonna go with it. Again, the Copper Tone Girl, the Dawn Bailey. How can we make this billboard give off that 50s feel, but still really, really stand out? Like, imagining this, seeing something like this on the highway, like, you really can't get around it. And the idea that, you can do a regular billboard of her and she's like putting on lipstick and it looks cool, whatever. But how can we take that a step further, knowing what we know, establishing all the things that we already established? How can we do something different? That's always my motto. And we got here. So we started out with a regular mock-up, and then we blew up the lipstick from the packaging design that we just established, blew it up, have it lean on her, and then we have Taste Beauty by Sabrina Carpenter in the middle so that people know like what's going on. And then, we could even add like a coming to in 2025 or something, but for the sake of this video and the design itself, why not incorporate the logo just so that people know what's going on? Or even if this is after it comes out, this is what something like that would look like with the logo lockup going on. You know what I mean? Adding a filter here to make it look a little more vintage, a little more saturated, a little more sweet. Make things a little more tasty, vibrant, make it look nice. Added a vibrancy adjustment layer there. And then taking out that landscape and making this more of like a die cut kind of situation. And that's all I got for you guys. I had so much fun with this project. It got a pretty good set of feedback on social media. It wasn't one of those projects where it's like you have to like pull it out of you and it's so stressful and it hurts and you are like putting a bunch of things together that don't make sense and then you have to make it make sense. I think in this case, it made so much sense and I was really happy with how it all came together. I love designing, I love brand design, and I love thinking about things like that with concepts and all the colors and everything. So I'm happy. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm going to leave a ton of information that you might be interested in the description box below. And yeah, see you soon.